Hello, I hope that this angle is going to be okay to film from because I've just tried to set it up like so many different times. I feel like I'm a little bit wonky actually. Oh my god, yeah, that's so much better. Hello, welcome back to another video. So today's video, as you can tell by the title, is going to be like a girl talk kind of video. Before I even get into this video, I just want to say, without, you know, sounding like the girls' bathroom intro, this is going to be a very light-hearted video. I'm just going to share my opinions. I'm going to try and offer some different points of view on certain topics, all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, you know, if people have asked me questions about relationships, every relationship is different. There is no like one size fits all approach to those sorts of topics. Yeah, you guys, you know, you're not stupid. You don't need me to tell you that every relationship is different, every scenario is different. So there were lots of very interesting topics, and some of them I feel like I'm going to end up going off on like a tangent. Any opinions that you have on anything that I say, any of the questions that have been asked, please do feel free to leave a comment below, because some of these topics would not have been a topic like years and years ago, and now they are. And I feel like no one has the answers because we're the first generation that's living through like the social media age, because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of these questions were to do with relationships and to do with social media. So the first one, which I think is the most interesting topic, is should I be concerned if my boyfriend is following OF accounts? OF stands for OnlyFans accounts. Now, I put this on my Instagram story, I put it to a poll, I put it to the people, and it was like 87% said yes and 13% said no, and it was like over 1,000 people voted yes. So it was very heavy on the people would have an issue with that sort of stuff. Now, with like following OnlyFans accounts, I'm assuming this girl meant following the pages on social media. I think subscribing to OnlyFans is like a whole different kettle of fish. To answer the question, like in summary, should you be concerned? Not inherently, because every relationship has different boundaries. It might be something that you and your partner are comfortable with, but the fact that you have asked me this question kind of shows me that you're not comfortable with it, or maybe you are comfortable with it but you feel like you're weird for being comfortable with it. You're not weird if you are comfortable with it. Equally, you're not an insecure psychopath if you're not comfortable with it, because people love any girl who has boundaries to do with things like this. They love to call them insecure psychopath. So I think it's very like context dependent. For example, my partner has friends who do OnlyFans, that is their job, and so he does follow them on Instagram. I don't see a problem with that personally. Now, I know that some people might not even want their partner to be friends with people who do OnlyFans. I do think that's a step too far, because a job is a job. It doesn't make them any like less trustworthy of a human. I don't think there's an issue with them, with Dan being friends with people who do OnlyFans. Like, I know the girls, they're really nice girls. I would also class them as friends, and I see no issue with him being friends with them or following those accounts on Instagram, because they are his friends. It's very context dependent. If you are comfortable with it, then no, you don't need to be concerned. If, you know, that's a boundary that you guys have in your relationship, then no, it's not anything to worry about. It's not inherently bad. However, if it's something that you are uncomfortable with, as with anything, I think nowadays, especially with social media, because it adds hundreds more problems into relationships, and relationships are already very complex. You need to like communicate those boundaries and make them very clear. And relationships, in my opinion, are all about compromise. Everyone says that, it's such a cliche thing to say, but it's true. Relationships are all about compromise. You know, no one's perfect. You're going to have, there'll be things that you do that your partner might be uncomfortable with, and there'll be things that they do that you might be uncomfortable with. And ultimately, if it's something that really bothers you in the relationship, you need to let them know and have that conversation about it. Now, if it's a boundary that you like stand firm on, it makes you very uncomfortable, and your partner is not willing to bend or compromise to that, that is then on you. It's not on them to change. If that's something that they like strongly believe is okay to do, which everyone's got different opinions, different boundaries. If they strongly believe it's okay to do that, they're not going to stop doing it just because it upsets you. The responsibility of that kind of then falls on you to decide if that's a relationship you want to continue with, because ultimately you can't change someone. And yes, it's about compromise, but if someone is not willing to compromise, then you need to really think, is this something that I can live with? Is it something that I can get over? Or would I be better off exiting the relationship and finding someone whose boundaries are more in line with mine? Don't want this video to turn into me being like, play more fish in the sea, dump your man, because all relationships have problems. I don't care what anyone says, all relationships have problems, all relationships have disagreements, all relationships have arguments. Shit happens, like you'll go through good phases, you'll go through little dips, like it's not just going to be like all rainbows and sunshines, all rainbows and sunshine. However, I think when it's like fundamental values and boundaries that if someone was to cross it, it really makes you uncomfortable. For example, your partner following OnlyFans accounts and they don't see an issue with it, they're not going to stop doing it. You need to think long and hard about the future of that relationship and if it's something that you can accept. And if it is something that you can get over and accept, great. And if it's not, probably time to exit the relationship. My personal stance on this is, like I said, my partner has friends who do OnlyFans, so him following those accounts is not inherently a red flag or an issue for me. It's not something that bothers me. However, if it was girls that I've never heard of and they're not his friends and he was following these accounts, for me personally, that is crossing one of my personal boundaries, because for me, I would be thinking, and I'm not saying that this is how everyone needs to think, this is just how I'm thinking, why do you want to follow accounts that post half-naked pictures whilst you're in a relationship? Like I said, if it's someone that they are friends with, if it's someone that they're really close with, I get it. But if it's just random girls, even if they follow them back, I personally don't care. I know that everyone has a huge ick about guys following girls who don't follow them back. Even if they did follow them back, I'm still thinking, hun, what are you doing? And I don't want to go too into like the boundaries in my current relationship, because you know what, it would have been interesting to do this video with Dan, to be honest, but I don't want to talk about what Dan's boundaries are. I don't want to go too much into what mine are, but I always think a pretty foolproof rule you can follow in a relationship when it comes to things like this, you know, should I be concerned about XYZ, this really bothers me about social media, is if you are going to put a boundary in place, you need to make sure that you also follow that boundary. I cannot stand double standards. Like, if you think of something, and by the way, we all make mistakes. I have made mistakes in the past, previous relationships, current one right at the start. I've made mistakes when it comes to social media. There is something that you know would make you uncomfortable if your partner was doing it. I think it's pretty foolproof. Just don't do it to them. I know everyone's got different boundaries, but I just think you end up in a very awkward double standard kind of situation. So to answer the question, no, you shouldn't inherently be bothered if your partner is doing that. For me personally, would it bother me? Yes. And if it does bother you, you need to have that conversation with your partner. Although I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be a pretty awkward one, because how do you know who they're following on Instagram? We've all been there, we've all been down those rabbit holes, but like, and this kind of weaves in quite well with the next question that I had, which was, boyfriend is liking bikini pictures, am I psycho for being bothered? No, if something makes you uncomfortable, it makes you uncomfortable. Let them know, see if they are willing to compromise on it, and like I've just said about the whole boundaries thing, apply the same logic there. One thing that I cannot stand is, and I hate it when girls do it to other girls, the branding of girls as psycho, insecure, hard to be with, difficult, for having boundaries and actually putting those boundaries in place. This whole notion that you are meant to be, and if you are, that's completely fine. I'm not judging, but I feel like people who are comfortable with XYZ judge people who aren't a lot harder than the other way around, and I just don't understand it. If you are comfortable with your partner following OnlyFans girls on Instagram, your partner, you know, liking half-naked pictures, your partner liking bikini pictures, all that sort of stuff, if you are comfortable with that, that's fine. But that does not mean that the people who aren't comfortable with it are insecure. You know, it doesn't mean they're psychopaths. The cool girl monologue in Gone Girl sums it up so well. It sums up so well. It's such a good monologue. If you've not seen the film, I definitely recommend you watch it. Nowadays, I think we're expected to be comfortable with like a lot of stuff that it's just against our nature to be comfortable with it. And if you're not comfortable with it, you're a psychopath, or you're really insecure. And ultimately, a lot of these girls' partners, and I'm not saying it's all guys who do this, because there's a lot of girls that are hypocrites as well, let me make that very clear, but a lot of these girls' partners, you know, if the girl's uncomfortable with their partner liking certain pictures, all that sort of stuff, if the shoe was on the other foot, he would be going crazy. And they are also probably the same partners who would be kicking, crying, screaming, throwing up in a corner if their partner was to post that sort of content. And I just think, if you want to be going around dropping likes under those kind of pictures, you better be comfortable with your partner posting those pictures. A lot of insecure people get into relationships, they want a really hot partner, they bag the hot partner, they get them, but then they project their own insecurities onto their partner. They stop them from doing XYZ and they crush them down to be as small as possible, and then they go and like and engage with all the sort of stuff that they have stopped their partner from doing. And I'm not here for that, guys or girls. I'm not here for that behaviour, and I see it happen a lot. There's a lot of negging as well. If you don't know what negging is, Google it, because it's one of my absolute pet peeves. So no, you are not a psychopath if you don't like your partner following OnlyFans girls on Instagram, if you don't like your partner liking half-naked pictures on Instagram. You're not a psychopath, you're not insecure, and I can probably bet money on it that if the situation was the other way around, your partner probably wouldn't like it either. So have that conversation with stuff like this. But yeah, I feel like I've gone on like really big tangents with those two questions, but I feel like they were so intertwined. Like, I like to think I'm quite reasonable when it comes to my relationship. Dan has said I'm very reasonable. I think I'm quite fair, but I still have boundaries. And like, what I really just despise is the pick-me girls who are cool with everything. And if you are cool with everything, that's fine. It doesn't inherently make you a pick-me. What makes you a pick-me is being like, oh my god, if you have X boundary, you're just insecure and a psychopath. Because it's not true. It's not true. Just say you're a pick-me. Sit down. I had so many questions, moving on guys and girls being friends. You know, can platonic friendships be a thing? And this is very short and sweet answer for me. Yes. I grew up all through school with a lot of male friends. I would not touch any of them with a barge pole. There's nothing there. Jordan Burt, my very good friend, my god, I miss him. I'm gonna message him when I finish filming this, because he lives in Manchester, but I think I will. I need to see him. I'm missing the good vibes. He's very, very good vibes. He is he's one of few people that I have stayed in touch with in terms of like my male friends that I had at school. But I had a lot of male friends, and it was never weird or anything like that. It just wasn't like that. So I firmly believe guys and girls can have friendships. If you're in a relationship, I really do think you've got nothing to worry about. Now, if your partner is being super sneaky about a friendship that they've got with a guy or a girl, you know, they're being quite sneaky about it, you've not met them, they don't really show an interest in meeting you, they don't make an effort with you, that's a bit different, that's a bit weird, but that's just not an experience that I've had. Dan has so many female friends and they've all been really lovely, really welcoming to me. I don't get the vibe that they're trying to shag him. I also don't get the vibe that he's trying to shag them. So for me personally, I think male and female friendships can be platonic. It's fine. What I will say on this is, and I saw this TikTok the other day and it was so funny, is that some men, and women probably do it too, will say, oh, you know, I'm allowed female friends, I'm allowed male friends, but their partner's not. You can't have things like that. You can't have double standards. And the funniest thing is, when I can only speak on it from guys because it's because of the TikToks I've seen, but I'm sure that women do it as well. They'll be like, oh, I can have female friendships. It's not weird, blah, blah, blah. And then if their partner has like a male friend or is making male friendships, has male friendships that have been around for a while, their partner will be like, ah, you're not a guy, you're not a guy, you don't get it, you're not a guy, you think that they're your friend, and really they're just secretly waiting for you to be single so that they can shag you. And it's just like, you're telling on yourself. Sir, you are telling on yourself. Those TikToks really make me laugh, but I'm sure women do it too, to be balanced. But yeah, overall, can men and women be platonic friendships? Yes, I've had them, I experienced them, it's not weird. My 2 closest besties started dating this year, and I feel like a loser for not finding someone. First of all, you're definitely not a loser. Your time to shine will come. I just think in these scenarios, you've got to put a positive spin on it, and your friends have now got something that's, you know, adding to their lives. They've got partners, they're dating, all that sort of stuff. You've not found anyone. That doesn't make you a loser. And actually, your friends, and this isn't a bad thing because relationships are very rewarding. Relationships, dating requires a lot of time and effort. Like, you've got to put a lot of time and effort into that, and time and effort that you would normally spend maybe on yourself or elsewhere, or on your friends, on your family, does go down a bit because there's a new addition to your life, and you've got to factor that in. So take it as a positive, the fact that you're not dating anyone, the fact that you are still by yourself, because you have that extra time that your friends don't, because they're putting that into a relationship, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have that extra time, you have that advantage. You can pick up a new hobby, as stupid as it sounds, pick up a new hobby. You could start, I mean, I hate to sound like a hustle culture queen, but like, you could start a little business on the side. You've got plenty of time to work on you, read, chill, little independent breaks. Like, there's so many things that you can do when you're single that obviously you can't do in a relationship. Use this time to focus on you and do the things that you want to do, because you're not having to factor anyone else in. This is a time when you could be really, really selfish, at least in the romantic sense, because you're on your own. Make the most of that time, girl. You are not a loser because you haven't found anyone yet. The right person will come along eventually at the right time when it's meant to be. I'm a big believer in that. I don't think you have anything to worry about. Okay, someone has said, please talk about endometriosis. Now, I want to tread really carefully when I talk about this topic, because I feel like people weirdly like to gatekeep health conditions, and it's really weird. Like, if you don't have something bad enough, it's not worthy of talking about. Or because I've seen people that have come out and said they've got endometriosis, they've had the laparoscopic surgery, right, they've been diagnosed with it, and people are like, oh well, they can do XYZ, oh they can walk. Not everyone will experience the same symptoms, so I'm literally a bit nervous to speak about it. But I do have suspected endometriosis. Ever since I was 14, which is when I got my period, I've had really bad period pains. I would have 1 to 2 days a month off school, to the point where I remember getting called in for an attendance meeting, and I literally was just like, it was a male teacher as well, I was just like, I get my period every month and I'm in agony. And it used to really upset me, because I thought I was just being a bit of a wuss, because none of my friends got pains that bad. So I would take time off school and they'd be like, oh, period pains aren't that bad, me. And it's not only now that I'm older that I realise period pains are different for everyone, and if there's an underlying issue going on, you're going to get a lot worse pain. But I eventually went on birth control to help with the period pains, and it definitely did help, but there were a lot of issues that I had. I tried so many different pills. Honestly, I literally tried everything. I tried the injection, all that sort of stuff, and I ended up coming off every form of contraception about 2 to 3 years ago. I don't want to just keep masking why I'm masking the pain every month. I want to know why I'm getting the pain every month, and manage it in a way that doesn't involve me having to sacrifice other areas of my life. Like, for me personally, I know that the coil, like the copper coil, is like non-hormone, but for me personally, with, you know, birth control I've been on in the past, I've had so many issues with how it affects me mentally. Like, I have diagnosed anxiety and it makes it so much worse. Like, there's been points where I've been really mentally unwell, and it really just exasperated it. So I don't want to be on it. That's my personal choice. However, as I have been off it for like 2-3 years now, my pains are back, and they're back with vengeance. I get the worst cramping, I get the worst stomach. Like, my stomach when I'm on my period is like really not good, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but like, it's not good. It's really, really bad. The worst pains, the worst bloating. I know that when you're on your period anyway, this happens to everyone, your temperature goes up, but I get very, very, very hot. Periods are just not a good time for me. I get really bad pains. I have been admitted into hospital twice. Once was around 2.5 years ago. I couldn't walk. They thought it was suspected appendicitis, scanned me for everything. It wasn't appendicitis, sent me home, went for an ultrasound, nothing showed up on the ultrasound, sent me home, was none the wiser, continued plodding on. Back end of last year, I got really bad stomach pains one night. The next morning, I came into Leeds, I was doing work in Nando's. I remember putting on my Instagram story, like, I think I've got like IBS or something, like, can people recommend stomach tablets I can take? Went to Boots, got a shit ton of medication. That did not help whatsoever. It continued to get worse to the point where, like, I'm quite a trooper. Like, I will really try and push through things, but like, I couldn't. I was crying on the sofa, like, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't walk. So the next day I went to hospital, and again, they wanted to check me for appendicitis, and I was like, I know it's not appendicitis because of where the pain is, and the NHS is amazing, but I was like, I'm not staying in overnight for you to do an x-ray when I already know that it's not appendicitis. Like, it's a waste of my time, and it's also a waste of everybody else's time. So I ended up being diagnosed with, which isn't even a diagnosis, unexplainable abdominal pain. Sent away with codeine. That pain honestly lingered for like a solid week. It was very, very, very bad. I had to take quite a bit of time off the gym. I then decided, because Dan helped me out with this, obviously he's like works in healthcare, so he got me in some clinics for some scans. It was private, and I did have to pay for it, and it was very expensive. Well, not very expensive, but like, considering you get stuff for free if you go through the NHS, it is expensive. So I had ultrasound scans again, blood work, urine test, swabs, all that sort of stuff, to basically rule every other thing that it could be out. Everything else was ruled out, and the next step for me is to have the laparoscopic surgery. Now, if I want to do that through the NHS, it will be a very, very long wait. If I want to do it private, I can get it done a lot quicker, but it's going to be very expensive. It's actually wild to me that I have been like thrown off, like sent away so many times ever since I was 14, masked the pain. No one's asking questions, they're just saying, oh, it's just period pains, oh, it's just period pains, it's normal. For me to then, you know, potentially, because I've not had the laparoscopic surgery, I don't know for sure, it could be something else, but we have ruled everything else that it could be out now, that it could be something a bit more serious, is just really frustrating. And I think there's a lot of statistics around endometriosis. It takes years and years on average for a woman to get a diagnosis, because, like I say, you are just sent away so many times with multiple different forms of contraception, painkillers, oh, it's just period pains, oh, it's just something that you have to live with. If your periods are so bad to the point where you cannot function and go about your day-to-day activities, it's not normal. Keep pushing, keep trying to get answers, and do not take no for an answer. Your health is so important. It's way more than just working out in the gym and eating good food. Please just keep pushing if you are concerned about things like that and anything to do with your health. Okay, next question. Should our boyfriends be scared of period sex? No. Well, yeah, if they're not comfortable with it, then they're not comfortable with it. Like I said earlier, boundaries, they're very important. If someone's not comfortable with it, I don't think it's, you know, wrong. Some people just won't be comfortable with it, and I don't think it makes them a terrible person. Some people are comfortable with it, and that's great, we love that. But yeah, I don't think they should be scared of it, but I also don't think they're wrong if they aren't comfortable with it and would rather just wait. Someone else has said, how do you deal with 2 of your best friends ghosting you within the last year? Probably not the answer that you want to hear, but first of all, a good place to start would be, just having a think, is it anything that you've done? It's not always something that you've done, but if two best friends have done it in the past year, self-awareness and self-reflection is important. So you might just have a look at your friendships, you know, how you go about things, how you conduct yourself, and see if there's anything that could have been the cause of them ghosting you. If you're none the wiser and you have actually been very honest with yourself and you're like, no, I actually haven't done anything, you know, there's no patterns, they've not said anything. You know, people outgrow each other. It's quite normal as you grow up. You outgrow each other, you develop different interests, people go to uni, all that sort of stuff. There's so much that happens from like 16 to like your mid-20s. I feel like there's so many life changes, and I've had friendship fallouts. I've had people that I was friends with for years and years and years that I don't speak to anymore. Did I ever think that would happen? No, but it has happened. Shit happens. Not every friendship is gonna last forever. I hate to say it, but you know, there is plenty more fish in the sea. You can make new friends and you can find friends. Maybe those friends didn't align with your values or your interests or your hobbies, and maybe now those friends not being in your life is a way for you to have new friends come into your life that are more in line with the path that you're on. I'm not particularly religious, I'm not particularly spiritual, but I do believe in like something more than us, and I do think that sometimes things are taken off your path, people are taken out of your path, so that better people can come onto your path, or so that you can go on to a different path that where, you know, staying with certain people was gonna prevent you from doing that sort of thing. It is shit. I think friendship fallouts are really, really bad, but I think it says quite a lot that they've ghosted you and not given you any explanation. I know that people love to say, you don't owe anyone an explanation, you don't owe anyone shit, you don't owe anyone anything. You owe people respect in life, in my opinion, unless someone's done you like disgustingly dirty, which I feel like you haven't, otherwise you wouldn't be asking the question. Unless you've done something like super, like you've really done someone fucking dirty, like you've slept with their partner, for example. Fair if they just ghost you and never speak to you again and leave you stewing. I think, yeah, people always like to say, oh, you don't owe anyone anything. I think you owe people common decency and respect, and I think if you don't want to be friends with someone anymore, you kind of need to tell them that you don't want to be friends with them anymore, or at least, you know, explain why you're going to distance yourself, or at least distance yourself slowly rather than ghosting someone, because I just think that's quite a rude thing to do, personally. Okay, negativity on the pill. Not sure why it's demonized when other contraception has issues too. I'm 100% on board with this. Now, as I've just spoken about, contraception doesn't agree with me, but I would never, ever, ever sit here and tell people not to go on contraception, because I have friends that it works so well for. And also, you know what, there are very valid concerns about hormonal contraception. There are very real side effects that some people will experience, but as soon as you start putting out false claims, you completely lose any validity to your argument. I have seen Instagram posts recently saying that contraception causes PCOS. It was never a thing before contraception was created. Yes, it was. It literally was. And because you've now put that misinformation out there, it's just fear-mongering, and I'm not here for it. I don't like it. Yes, some people have issues when they're on contraception, but what you have to remember is it's like reviews of a brand. It's like opinions on something. The people who've had a negative experience are so much more likely to speak about their experience, unfortunately, than those who had a positive experience, which then means you get a bias because it looks like everyone has had a really negative experience, when realistically there are millions of women who are just fine on contraception. Yeah, I feel like there's almost like a stigma, like, oh, you shouldn't really be putting that in your body. Let people do what they want to do, as long as they, you know, they're aware of the risks, because there are risks. They're aware of the side effects, because there are potential side effects that you could experience. As long as you are aware of all that, and you're healthy and fit, and you're not experiencing any of those issues, you don't need to be concerned, in my opinion. Ultimately, contraception is a very individual thing. What works for some people won't work for others, and yeah, you just need to find out what works for you. If you don't want to be on it, that's fine. If you do want to be on it, that's also fine, and you don't need to, you know, be aware of the side effects, of course, but like, do not listen to some of the absolutely absurd false claims on social media. Also, because I'm like a fitness girl, PT coach, I feel like I need to say this. I've seen so many posts recently from girls saying, oh, I came off the pill and I gained muscle so much quicker. That's all well and good, and if that's your choice, that's your choice. If that's your experience, that's your experience. I'm not going to sit here and say I've read all the research on it, because I haven't. But even if it is true, I can tell you one thing that will slow down your progress a hell of a lot more than being on the pill, and that's having a baby. So that's always something to consider with those sorts of claims, to weigh up the options. Do you know what I mean? Should I be concerned that my boyfriend doesn't post me on Instagram but everything else is perfect? If everything else is perfect, I feel like let's not pick, kind of, because I just feel like we expect perfection from people now, and you could have a really, really good, loving, caring, kind partner who fulfills a lot of your needs and all that sort of stuff, and it can get quite draining if someone just constantly picks up on the negatives. But if it does bother you, it's definitely worth having a conversation. You know, if you've sat on it for a while, I try not to be a super reactive person with issues. I try to sit on it for a while and really see how I feel about things, and then if it's still bothering me, I'll bring it up, sort of thing. You know, it's kind of context dependent, the whole like partners not posting you on Instagram. If that person shares every inch of their life on Instagram, and you know, they're on Instagram all the time, they have no concerns with sharing other things. I know that some people say that they just want to keep their relationship private, and I understand that on like a celeb influencer level, but if they're just like a normal Tom, Dick and Harry that happily shares every other aspect of their life, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit strange if they're not posting anything of you. But if it's someone who has Instagram but never uses it, it's not weird because they don't use Instagram ever, so why would they post you? I know it's hard to think that people don't use Instagram, but some people genuinely don't use it, so they're not gonna post you because they're not gonna be on there as much. It's a really tricky one. It's definitely context dependent, like I've just said. I've just thrown a few scenarios out there, but ultimately, like the dilemmas I went through at the start of the video, if something's bothering you, the only thing that you can do is let your partner, you know, be aware of it, make them aware of it, have a conversation with them about it, and see, you know, what their stance is on it, because they could have like a perfectly sound explanation for things, or they might have made a mistake. For example, like with the bikini thing earlier, I know that people think you don't like things by accident, but some people do scroll through on autopilot, and you don't want to go in all guns blazing being like, you've done this on purpose. You need to go in and just ask why certain things have been done. You know, if they're not posting you on Instagram, say, oh, you know, how come you don't really post me on Instagram? You know, I'm just curious, and ask the question rather than being like, you're not posting me on Instagram because you're trying to hide me. Especially if everything else is perfect, definitely give them the benefit of the doubt. And if you want to have the conversation, phrase it as more of a question. Focus on like how it makes you feel during the conversation rather than accusing them of doing X, Y, Z. You know, for example, with the bikini scenario, you would say something like how to approach the conversation. So you'd ask them about it, they'd give you a response, and you wouldn't want to then accuse them and say something like, you're liking her pictures because you want her attention. You would instead say something like, oh, when you do X act, for example, you know, or when you don't do X, so when you don't post me on Instagram, or when you do like these pictures, it makes me feel a bit insecure, it makes me feel a bit disrespected, it makes me feel like you don't want to share me, that sort of stuff. So there's a way, you know, you can say it makes me feel this kind of way, it makes me feel X, Y, Z. Try focus it more on how you feel rather than being like accusatory in your tone, because you want to make sure that any issue you're bringing up is going to be received well. And some people just shut down. As soon as you accuse them of something, they just shut down and they're not going to listen to what you're actually saying. So I would always try and phrase it in that way if you're bringing up these kind of issues. But to answer the question about the Instagram thing, I just think it really is context dependent. I don't know your relationship. There is no like right or wrong answer. Someone is really going out of their way to hide the fact that they're in a relationship and they're posting like they're single. It's a bit weird. I think it's a bit weird, personally. That's all the questions that I'm going to go through. Not gonna lie, I've really enjoyed doing this video. I think I'm definitely gonna do more of these. I think I'll try and leave some things in the description box about endometriosis, some kind of like informational websites, more information, because if you're having those kinds of symptoms, it's definitely an avenue for you to go down and explore. I'm a big believer in like tracking period symptoms, all that sort of stuff, so I will leave that information below. If you have enjoyed the video, then please give it a thumbs up because it really helps. And like I said, opinions and all that sort of stuff, do leave a comment because that also helps with engagement. It helps to push my videos out. Just being honest, the more engagement I get, the more my videos get pushed out. So yeah, subscribe if you want to and you haven't already. And yeah, if you want to get involved in these sorts of videos, follow me on Instagram. It's just at amyrookes, and I always do my question boxes on there. But yeah, have a gorgeous day, evening, afternoon, whenever this goes up, and see you in my next video.